formidable robot.
MiketheNumberblock3510 was a Spinpasta user who was active around 2018 up until 2022, when he uploaded his last story. He also seemed to have an obsession with number blocks. I won't go into further details on what stories he has written, but a lot of them were number blocks related. He also had a feud with another Spinpasta user, and the user goes by LennyFan36, and was also a frequent creepypasta writer on the wiki. They weren't good writers either, much like everyone else on the wiki. There is also a big difference between them, which I will get to later in this post. I'm pretty sure you already know what the Lost THX text stories have to offer. It's about Tex, the main mascot of the company, killing various characters in many ways. One such example is in Tex and Zerg, where Jesse is burned inside a box for no apparent reason whatsoever. The difference between Mike and Lenny is that while they are both terrible writers, Lenny is a good person, whereas Mike, on the other hand, is a scumbag. Lenny Fan primarily writes stories centered around the Wonder Pets. She isn't a fan of number blocks but is relaxed about it. She understands that people have different opinions on certain pieces of media and is fine with others enjoying what they like. Mike tends to misinterpret Lenny Fan's stance wildly. He would sometimes leave hate comments on one of her stories, specifically with him saying that she needs to, and I quote, stop hating on number blocks. Lenny Fan would sometimes respond to said comments, stating that he couldn't leave these kinds of comments on one of her stories because she didn't want to get harassed by him. As a result, Mike would go out of his way to write a story that is THX related, which would also unfortunately have ulterior motives behind it. The story itself remained lost media since its deletion in 2023, up until 2025, when it was recovered by a user who used to be on the wiki via Wayback Machine since it only had one screen cap that contained the story. The start of the story was rather predictable. It describes in great and necessary detail every piece of media used in the pasta. Of course, things like murder drones, the adventures of Andre and Wally, number blocks, and unfortunately Wonder Pets. You can probably understand why that's as unfortunate as it is. Like in every other THX story, there is a part where the protagonist finds a random package at either a building or a restaurant, or they get a random knock at the door for said package. They go into unnecessary detail on the cover and menus and how the warning screen promoted a horror movie that isn't THX certified. The next few paragraphs of the story goes to the following with the characters right next to the logo of the fabled robot, unaware of the shit show that unfolded in its glory. All of a sudden, Tex flies by and has some weird agenda or reasoning for why he murdered all the characters for the dumbest reason and decides to round them up in a circle. And then as Tex was about to rip and tear into all of them, the story took a sharp turn. And as Tex raised his saw into the air, they stopped. Not just Tex, but his victims. And they all looked at you. In disdain. This is for you. From the very start, this was for you. I know you'd love to pick this apart, wouldn't you? Say it's not good enough, wouldn't you? Tell me I'm not doing this right. You make me sick. God had no hand in your creation. You are a mistake in your very essence. You grovel in your filth and try to drag the clean into it. I despise you with every fiber of my being. Words can't even describe how much I genuinely abominate you and your very existence. And to anybody who's reading this, I don't need to tell you who this is for. Because they know. Because she knows. Do you want to know something that your mind cannot fathom? Something vital that you like or can't even lay your finger on? The very idea of shutting up and respecting people. Do you also want to know something? I know where you are. Get ready for a performance to die for, smiley. The next image was of MiketheNumberblock3510, with no mouth and dilated pupils. The colors of the blocks themselves were peeling and chipping like dried paint, all of which were on a white backdrop. Next to him was black text. Text that displays an address, which is blurred for privacy. Lenny Fan would leave a comment after she finished reading the story. What the fuck? What is wrong with you? What did you do? What did you do, you swine? You piece of molding crap, what have you done? I hate you. I hate you, Mike. You half-human thing, how dare you? You monster, you cuck, you. What did I do to deserve this? I didn't do anything. I've done nothing. You putrid excuse of a person. You put my actual life in serious danger. Are you able to grasp what you've done, you basement-dwelling snake? What have you done? According to the user who archived the story, it was deleted a few hours later for violating the wiki's terms of service. Mike's fandom account was also deleted as a result. For a few weeks, it had seemed like the situation had been resolved. That was until a random account, a new one, began posting to the Spinpasta forums. Always tagging LennyFan in every post. All the posts were threats. They started vague before they descended into outright saying that he would disembowel her in one. However, one of the last posts featured off-putting wording. Once we find you, we'll torture you until you forget your name. Multiple people were involved in this. Screenshots of Google Maps with colored blocks meant to represent Mike's OC. They were nearing the address featured in the screenshot. Finally, after the posts had paused, something happened. A group of 3 people had died in unrelated accidents throughout one night. The first one had been struck and killed by a car. The driver, when asked about it, said they were carefully driving and not intoxicated, and that the person getting in their way was a complete surprise. 2 other people encircled them during this, the 2 promptly running away screaming. Witnesses recount the group having pointed to a certain house while one held their phone out, presumably for Google Maps. Witnesses recounted 2 people having stopped in front of 2 houses. An elderly woman from across the street, who had seen them sprinting full force to the houses, had stepped outside only to hear them muttering. One went into one house, while the other went into the other. One of them was shot dead, and the other managed to break into LennyFan's home as soon as they grabbed a knife from the kitchen. Before the person could even run towards her room, they would trip and fall down the stairs, causing the knife to plummet into his stomach. Police later got involved as they called in to investigate the bizarre crime scenes, but later found out the crime was connected to Mike the Numberblock. From a now archived BBC article that was published in early 2023, detailing the mysterious user being Mike under a sock puppet account after his first account was nuked off of the Spinpasta wiki for leaking the address of LennyFan over something meaningless and small, and later decided to take matters into his hands by sending his supporters to her house in real life. The police were able to identify him as Michael Tyler Nelson, who was later sentenced to 20 years in prison. LennyFan later publicly announced she'd be leaving the wiki due to all the stress that had come out of it a little after Mike was arrested. She didn't announce where she'd be going, but assured us she'd still generally be around on other wikis. We don't know which account she is using at the time, but we don't think she'd want us to try and speculate where she's at. LennyFan would leave one final discussion page before she departed from the wiki. Mike, if you're reading this, I'm praying for your downfall. Hope you're rotting in that prison cell of yours. I hope you can sleep well. I hope every day you wake up and have to restrain yourself from tearing your eyes out. So long.